Token of Intelligence by Carl Mark James D. Remedios. Whenever we scroll our Facebook feeds and Instagram timelines, there is always this quote posted catching our attention saying, "Grades do not define intelligence, for these are just numbers and nothing else." So how could it define our intelligence then? There are lots of questions contradicting the essence of grades on their connection to the intelligence of a person. One of these is the question, how could grades define intelligence? Many people, especially the youth, are already affected and consumed by this mentality. It is very sad to note that this mentality of students with regards to grades causes a lot of problems to them. First, this has a big impact to the future of the students. It is in a sense that they think that having high grades doesn't guarantee them a successful career, so they are already disregarding the will to have high grades. Or in other words, they are no longer interested to study. Secondly, some people might also agree that grades do not define our intelligence because, according to their side, intelligence cannot only be showcased in the school but can also be seen in other factors such as in music, sports, dance, and others, as stated by Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences. Another thing is that maybe they are just afraid to be judged by others, especially to be scolded by their parents, because higher grades mean higher expectations, and it would be the cause of their burden if they do not reach the expectations of their parents and others. On the contrary, not all people believe to this saying, that grades do not define intelligence. Others that were not born with a silver spoon in their plates are still fighting and doing their best just to have high grades. Because, yes, literally, grades are just numbers and nothing else. But for them, grades are not defined by their literal meaning, but are defined by their metaphorical meaning, stating that the essence of high grades is that they are concrete and tangible evidences that you have learned and understood the lessons well that were taught in the four corners of the classroom. Thus, this work is in favor that intelligence is really defined by our grades, for if it does not, then why do teachers still need to provide grades for their students? Why do they waste their time in computing their scores in quizzes, exams, and performances as basis in giving grades? Why do they still need to rank students according to their grades? And what would still be the essence of all this tiring job if these grades that we are ignoring are not really important in defining intelligence? First, grades define intelligence to assess the student's level of learning. Teachers are discussing and presenting the lesson to the best of their ability to impart knowledge and educate the minds of their students. After discussion, teachers give quizzes or evaluation procedures to assess if the students learn something or not. Thus, if a student gets a high grade, that student is intelligent enough to understand the lesson. Second point, in our modern society, it is undeniable that a lot of students are complaining about their grades and comparing it to their peers. So if grades do not define intelligence, why do students complain about it? This just means that they think the grade they received at the end of the quarter does not match their level of intelligence. The grade is too low for them. This paper's second point as well states that students are unconsciously becoming grade freak without them knowing it. Third, grades are a measure of intelligence because of the fact that these are the final product of the things that students have done for an academic year. If you do not perform well inside your classroom, and if you do not focus while the teacher is discussing, this will reflect in the evaluation and examination activities given by the teacher. Indeed, as a student, you should always perform at your best. You should always be intelligent enough to think that your grades will matter the most in the workplace. For example, if you are applying for a job, the first impression of your interviewer will, of course, depend on your grades listed in your transcript of records. You cannot just simply say grades do not define intelligence, most especially when you are competing with someone who has higher grades than you do. As of now, you may think less about your grades, but let this paper remind you they will matter most when you need them the most. Always be at your best whenever you are inside the four corners of your classroom. Perform at your best, do whatever the teacher asks you to do excellently, because at the end of the day, it is for your advantage. Token of Intelligence by Carl Mark James D. Remedios.